Acids and bases are also pretty important for living organisms as well. So let's just define what an acid and a base are. So an acid is just a substance that increases the concentration of the hydrogen ions of a solution. And sometimes we'll also see that an acid, they say, will release or donate hydrogen ions. So here we have hydrochloric acid. And you can see when we put it into water, it falls apart or dissociates into hydrogen ions and chloride ions. So hydrochloric acid is considered an acid because it releases or increases the amount of hydrogen ions. And then a base is going to be the opposite. So a base is a substance that decreases the concentration of hydrogen ions of a solution. And we can also say that a base accepts and removes hydrogen ions. So here we have ammonia, and you can see that it's going to accept or remove this hydrogen ion because when we get over here on the other side, we've got ammonium, and the hydrogen ion is gone. So it's removed the hydrogen ion or decreased the hydrogen ion concentration. So pH is the measure of the hydrogen ion concentration in a solution. And the way I remember that is there's a big H in pH, and I just remember that pH is, you're just measuring the hydrogen ion concentration. There's a formula for figuring out the pH. It's the negative log of the hydrogen ion concentration, but you don't need to know that. But that's just how they calculate it. Okay, the pH scale runs from 0 to 14, and right in the middle of the scale is a pH of 7, and a pH of 7 is considered to be neutral. So this would be like pure water, and at a pH of 7, the hydrogen ion concentration is equal to the hydroxide ion concentration. If the pH number is less than 7, it's considered to be acidic, and that means you have more hydrogen ions. And if the pH number is greater than 7, then it's basic or alkaline, and it just means that you have less hydrogen ions. So here's just showing you the concentration of the hydrogen ions in red. So at a pH of 7, you're neutral, so you'd have the same concentration of hydrogen ions as you do these hydroxide ions. And with a pH of less than 7, it's acidic, so it just means you have more hydrogen ions. And then at a pH greater than 7, it means you're basic or alkaline. It means you have less hydrogen ions. So here's our pH scale, going from 0 to 14. A pH of 7 is when we're neutral, and the concentration of hydrogen ions is equal to the concentration of hydroxide ions. If the pH number is less than 7, so anywhere from 0 to 6.99 or whatever, that would be considered acidic, and you've got more hydrogen ions. And obviously, the lower the number, the more hydrogen ions you're going to have. And then a pH above 7, you're going to have less hydrogen ions. And as you go higher in the number, you're going to have less and less hydrogen ions. And it's just kind of interesting to look at this and see what the pH of various things are. It's kind of interesting to look at. Okay, we also have buffers. Because our pH has to stay in pretty narrow limits. So for example, our blood pH has to stay between 7.35 to 7.45. If our blood pH does not stay in this narrow range, then we actually will die. So our body has to maintain that very narrow limit with our blood pH, because if we get outside of that, either too low or too high, that'll kill us. So our body uses a lot of buffers to minimize the changes in pH. So these are really good for us because the buffers are like sponges. So if our blood pH is getting too basic, these buffers can release hydrogen ions and bring the pH back down to the normal range. Or if our blood pH is getting too acidic, then they can absorb the extra hydrogen ions and bring our pH back up to the normal range. Here's just an example of how these buffers work. So here's the pH number here. And here they're just adding lots and lots of extra base. And so that will make the pH number rise. But you can see that by having this buffer here, it will maintain that pH in this normal range and not allow the pH to go outside of that until you exceed the limit of the buffer, and then it will finally start to rise. So buffers are a pretty important part of our body and really help us out.